Hi, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, sister. How are you doing?
I am doing all right. So this morning I woke up and I went for my morning walk, and it was about 60 degrees, low humidity. And I was like, oh, fall. I fall in love in the fall. So today I thought we'd talk about dating, and kind of exploring like what's your definition of dating? What's your experience been over the last few months or so? And kind of just talking through that. So what is your definition of dating?
So, I have a unique perspective in that I get to hear a lot of different perspectives when it comes to things like hookup culture and dating and all of that sort of thing. So I would say dating now is not the same as when I was younger by
Mm,
any means.
okay. Interesting.
Dating to whatever extent people decide to associate themselves together, whether that be physically exclusive
Mm.
to whatever degree that is, and then or maybe it's just emotional and there's no physical. Like it goes all over the place from what I've learned in my old age.
That's interesting. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, maybe my definition of dating is rooted in, obviously my paradigms, how I grew up, the things that I heard growing up, and then maybe I need to be more relaxed. So I was asking a few different people, like, what's your definition of dating? And so I asked our father what his definition of dating. So hold on that one because that'll be fun. And then I asked, um, our kids, I asked them because of their Generation Z. Then I asked a couple of friends from Generation X, and I thought it was really interesting the different perspectives that they had. And so, for our kiddos, I thought that they would be more relaxed with their definition and kind of like, not as tied to a label or anything. But what I found was they were both very adamant that dating is when you are exploring a relationship. So it's a one-on-one encounter, and that you're dating to have a relationship. And so then I said, well, what about like if you went out with someone, had a coffee, and they both were like, well, that's just hanging out. That's not dating. That's just a date that to hang out. But when you're dating, it's exclusive one-on-one. And I was like, well, that's interesting because I did not expect your generation to have that. So I asked another friend who has a couple of kids that are same age as ours, a little bit younger, and they had a similar definition. And I was like, that's interesting. So then I had a couple of friends, like I said, that are Gen X, and they were also, for the most part, of that same mindset that it's a one-to-one relationship. But then I had another friend that was like more relaxed with that definition. Actually, I had a couple of friends that were very relaxed with the definition that it's not exclusive, that you can be dating multiple people at the same time. And it kind of reminded me of a conversation that you and I had about the importance of communication. So making sure on the onset that you've defined these definitions, that you're continuing to check in. And I'm kind of getting into your space now. So I was thinking maybe you could talk a little bit about, the importance of communication and making sure that you're on the same page. And at what point do you actually start to have those conversations with a potential partner or someone you're hooking up with, hanging out with, or dating?
That is a whole lot.
I know.
That's a whole lot going on. But I would say the short answer to that is to remember that when you first meet somebody and you're first interested in things, that you're not seeing everything as it actually is necessarily.
Mm,
When when we fall in love slash lust with someone in those that first, I mean, it can be months. We have these chemicals that
Mm.
are flooding our brains and making us not see all of the things that may be slightly hidden or may just be right there in front of us that
Mhm.
we see, that people around us, our friends and our family may see clear as day, but we don't. And so we sometimes we'll slip into something well before we ever should.
Mm.
And yeah, make some long-term promises, make some long-term
Mhm.
plans with someone who you didn't even know long term
Wow.
before you do that. So
S-
I
So I
think
think that technical term on that is limerence, right? So just that feeling, that romantic feeling, and like you said, all of those hormones are coming together that put you into the state of romance, of love. And like I said, for fall, I always seem to have an abundance of that. So the getting to the dating and everyone's different definitions of it, that is a good thing to think about when you're thinking about dating exclusively. Maybe it does need to be more relaxed because you need some time to make sure that that stickiness is sticking and it's not just something that's a chemical reaction.
it's
Is that
not,
what I'm
yeah, it's
hearing?
not you being clouded, your vision, your thoughts being clouded by chemicals that just say this person is just neat.
Mhm.
I just want to hang out with this person because they make me feel like X, you know,
Mhm.
and that's all that matters. So let me get an apartment with them. let me
Wow.
let me co-sign on a vehicle with them after I know them for 3 months because we've been dating and it's going so
Mm.
well. In these
Interesting.
3 months, like I haven't noticed anything that's wrong. It's all been, rainbows and butterflies.
Mhm.
And that's kind of my issue as to
Mhm.
um what is dating. Like
Right.
where is dating in that.
That is interesting. And so, kind of thinking about that a little bit, what are some of the things that, like when you're doing your curriculum or when you're talking to different groups of people, what are some of the things that you think of yourself or you advise people to look out for or maybe be aware of as they're navigating this dating scene so that you don't fall into this pattern of, oh my God, I'm in love and now I'm going to move in with you after coffee. I
Yeah,
last name.
that's a great question. Again, like it's one of those things where that the real answer is time. Like you gotta give the relationship, that other person, time to first, for
Mhm.
you to be able to calm down and have those emotions subside and have those hormones subside and be able to kind of see what's actually there. And then
Mhm.
also time for that other person to show their true colors. We tend to meet somebody new, and especially if we like them and wanna
Mhm.
be together with them, we put on that super best foot, the
Mhm.
best shoes, however you want to call it. We
Mhm.
we put all that on, and so that is, I mean, it's great, it's understandable, but it's also not really showing who the person actually is, um, necessarily, for a while until that mask, so to speak, starts to kind of come off, and that person gets more relaxed, in that, and that can take months up to 9, 10, a year before you
Mhm.
really hormones are down in one person and that those enough time for those true colors to kind of come out for that other person. So I would definitely recommend, and most of the things that I have learned say, don't make any long-term plans with somebody until you've given it time for both those hormones to calm down and that person to really like you to be in enough situations where that person
Mhm.
how they react in a number of different ways over a longer period of time. Because
Yep.
yes, in 3 months, when you're when you are head over heels for somebody, everything that they do is the sweetest, greatest thing that is,
Mhm.
but what you may not be seeing is that this person is cutting you down. This person is being rude to the
Mm.
waitresses, to the help staff. Like they're showing their true colors, but you're not seeing it because you're so wrapped up in that feeling of being with that person, that idea of love, as they call it.
Well, that's interesting. You said a couple of things that I'd like to respond to and explore. One of the things for me that I have is I tend to have confirmation bias. And so if I like someone, then I can look for those things that confirm that bias that I have that they're a good person. And I can sometimes discount or explain away those things that don't aligned to that definition of whatever assigned to that person. So that's something that I am aware of, and it kind of it actually does concern me a lot because if you are wrapped up in a relationship and you just keep discounting those things and you don't have anybody else to kind of say, hey, actually he's a jerk. So you might want to look at that. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that any of your family or friends would feel comfortable doing that. So it's like being mindful of that. And then the second thing that I thought was interesting is you were talking about time. I also think proximity is important because
Mm.
if you're seeing someone in certain situations and maybe it's a distance relationship or something, and so you don't get to see them in all situations, and not that you're going to be able to see anyone in all situations within 9 months, but you don't see enough of them to, in my opinion, to be able to come up with a true picture of that person. And maybe I'm wrong on it, I don't know. I think I also have PTSD, and that
Mm.
I'm concerned that you get involved in a relationship and then the something horrible is going to happen. I still have that too.
I see what you're saying, but I think even long distance over time, if someone is aware enough, they're going to slip up, they're going to say
Mm.
something that is problematic, but
Mm.
whether you catch it or not is the
Mm.
difference, whether it's over the phone, over text message, over Zoom, or in person. That eventually that yeah, eventually it's not going to be all the pretty things. Like
Mhm.
somebody's going to slip up, or somebody's going to notice something that is a precursor to some sort of unhealthy, you know potential pattern.
Yeah, that's interesting. So for me, I think that where I'm at in terms of dating, not that I am, but I just don't see myself having a traditional relationship. Like I don't want anyone in this house with me for a long period of time. And so that's something that I would have to be mindful of in making sure that I'm aware that if I do see some of those potential pink or red flags, that I explore that and not discount it away because, I see them, I don't know, every other week or whatever it is. So that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that is interesting too.
Hmm.
The non-traditional, I see you when I see you, but I don't need to see you
Yes.
all the time
I just don't.
sort
I
of
just
thing.
prefer not to. I don't want to see your face. Like, do you have a sales job or just, I don't know, go hunt animals in South Africa? I don't know where you're going, but just not
But
here.
just go do it.
Just
Yeah,
could you go
yeah.
do that for just a little
Just
bit?
go do that somewhere,
And
wherever
because
that
I
is.
do have this thing about being in falling in love in the fall. So by the time spring comes, I really need you to go do something. It's
Yeah,
hot and you need to go.
yeah,
So
yeah. So that's
that's
yeah. The
interesting.
heat. Don't get your body heat near me. That makes
No, none of
sense.
that.
No,
So
none of
I think that at my big age, like dating is interesting. Being divorced, having a big age, having children. It's obviously I never imagined myself being here, but I think that it's exciting because we can reimagine what dating is. It's also daunting because, like, I keep thinking that I'm going to meet someone at the Trader Joe's or the Whole Foods, and it hasn't happened. I mean, I don't try and make eye contact with people. That could be part of it, but so far that has not manifested anything. So I think it's interesting that um, this whole concept of dating, I don't know, I guess it is a lot different than when I was 20. And maybe it's because when I was 20, dating was for fun, or, as I kept getting older, dating was to find that partner. Um, so I don't know. It's just an interesting place to be at right now, and I just wanted to kind of talk to you and see what your experience was, and especially because you do have the opportunities to talk with younger kids, and you have a very vast group of friends. Get their perspective.
Yeah, and that's really it is I think there are a lot of similarities across age groups and
Mm.
socioeconomic backgrounds and the like.
Well,
There are people that are just wanting to have fun, like you said.
yeah,
Like there are we stereotype it and say that it's the guys that are like that just are out trying to get a piece or whatever you want to call it. I definitely know of of female bodied people that definitely are in that headspace at whatever age they are, whether they've been
hmm.
married, kids or not, or whatever. Like that's just where they happen to be at this point in time.
And so when they're like that, and going back to the original question of like what is dating, for those people, I'm assuming that dating, if they're defining it as dating, and they may not, they could be defining it as hooking up or whatever they define it as, but they're doing that with multiple partners at the same time. If
That's why I said earlier. I said hookup culture is
mm,
that's a thing that oddly enough, I'm finding more people my age. I thought it would be a younger sort of thing, but people closer to my age and they're in their mid to late 30s and 40s, early 40s at least, are engaging in hookup culture where it's like, hey, I know you, and we chit chat here and there, the friends with benefits sort of thing, that
interesting.
that sort of deal where no one's making any like lockdowns, no anchors are being dropped, but the boats are the boats are circling in the same water from time to time, that sort of thing.
It's
And I
interesting.
as many people from the different backgrounds, like I said before, that are all sort of going that route. Sorry,
Mm.
that's
And you don't think that you're not finding that with the younger group, and I was, like I said, it was curious to me, and I wonder. I'm going to get into some dangerous territory here because obviously I'm not a scientist or a sociologist, but I wonder if there's a correlation with COVID, like for our kids that grew up with COVID, and they were isolated from a lot of their peers, a lot of just people in general. If their concept of dating and having that one partner is a security or safety thing that could have been a byproduct of COVID and not having those connections for, that 4 years.
I would say among all the other things that the COVID has wrought upon us, that definitely could be part of it for
Mm.
sure. But I mean, even back when I was in high school and just after the age of our kids that you just spoke of earlier, um, there were people that were at one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. Like it's always kind of been just where you are. Are you someone who doesn't who's I don't want to say loose, but who's more open with their sexuality, their emotional, whatever, their physical, whatever it is. And then there are people who are more reserved and more guarded with that. And so they look at dating and that as that. I'm dating with purpose versus the people who are dating just to get the tickle, or
That's yeah,
whatever.
that's really interesting. And I think that I'm gonna think about that a little bit because I think that you're right. And I one of the things I really celebrate about our culture and how it's shifting is that people do have more opportunities and flexibility and less definition of society telling them how they can, should, or whatever to be, that you have that autonomy to kind of chart your own course. And so that does include owning your sexuality, and all of that that encompasses that. And then there are people that date for purpose, even though they may not know what that purpose is. Right. Like I just
Yeah,
said, I don't
yeah.
want a husband. I don't want any, well, I just don't. And I don't want you living here. But what is that? Like, why do I need a exclusive partner? I don't know. Maybe it's just from past definition or whatever. That's an interesting conversation. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's, relationships, full-on relationships are not for everybody. There are people that go their whole entire lives and they never have a serious air quotes relationship.
Hmm.
They but they do whatever is good for them.
Hmm.
Like what's
Yeah.
what's what's their definition of that. And I think that what you're getting at is that we have a much bigger acceptance of allowing people that freedom
Yes.
to express their love in whatever sort of fashion that is, whatever manner that is, to whatever
Hmm.
type of person, what any of that sort of thing. That has come a long way in our
Yeah.
lifetimes.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah,
For
like
sure.
like I remember in junior high, as they called it back in in the
In
day,
the 19s.
um, in the late 1900s, they there were clearly not heterosexual, not like on the somewhere off of the far end of heterosexual. And I grew up in a very small town in Oklahoma, and so even being as open-minded and as whatever as I have always been, I there are times where I could have and should have stepped in and said something where I didn't, because
Mm.
it wasn't okay. And I
Mm.
regret those instances every
Yes.
single day as an adult. But now I know that there are gay student alliances. Like my
Mm.
organization works with several of them at the schools that we work with. Like, so I know that there are teachers out there that are not afraid, and there are organizations that are not afraid to say, hey, be who you are. Like, it's
Yes.
fine. And if there's something that's going to stop you from being that, we're going to intervene so that that doesn't happen. And
Yeah.
in our state, yes, we have we have those clubs, but then we also have like their government that kind of, wants to kind of combat some of that in its own way.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think it's important though, and you think about the suicide rate for teenagers, especially in the queer community, how high that is because people don't have the grace and space to be who they are. And so I think those are having those environments set up for people to be who they are and to explore that is important. That coupled with that environment of being brave and having open communication. That's important.
So yeah, that's extremely important. And it's really good to hear that our kids said that dating is what it is. I mean, from my perspective, because I am not a dater for the tickle. If I date,
Yeah.
it's going to be for some sort of purpose, and
Hmm.
typically not that sort of purpose, if you know what I'm saying. So it's good to hear that the kids, because I've seen some documentaries. I've seen some footage of kids talking about, just with the internet and how the internet has kind of made things where you're so alone, but then you're also
Yes.
on the global stage at the same
Yes.
time. Nothing
Yeah,
like we had nothing even remotely close to that when we were growing up.
yeah,
And that has made such a huge difference in every single aspect of being a young person.
yeah, yeah.
And it's it's hard. It's nice. It's nice to hear that at least there are those kids out there that do lean towards the dating for purpose sort of side of the spectrum. Not knocking those that don't. I'm just saying it's nice to hear that that hasn't gone away with what some media outlets might kind of have you leaning to believe
Yeah,
that it's a lot less of that than what there
yeah.
is. And I think it's still the same sort of numbers are yes, the divorce rate has gone up to where it is now, but as far as people just dating, I'm sure they've always been daters to date, and they've always been daters to try to find a mate, like it's
I think
a
it's
tale as
important.
old as time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I talked to you, I said that I was going to talk about our dad, and I asked our dad and our mom what their definitions. And so our mom was very much dating with purpose. If you're saying the word dating, now she was also open to, you can just hang out with someone and you can whatever other thing, but if you're labeling it as dating, hers was extremely one-to-one. Our dad's was a little bit looser, which we probably could have, that could have been on everybody's bingo card. Got it.
Yeah.
So his is a little bit
That's the
looser.
free space.
That was a free space. And so I think it's interesting that, that we do have those different definitions and how I think all of us, and me, you being all aligned more with our mother's definition of that. I my youngest wants to be a guest speaker on here, and I said I'll think about it. But I think it would be interesting to hear their perspective on different just some different topics like this in general, dating and some other specific things. It is interesting. I think that you're right. That media does tend to make us alarmist and like, oh my God, what's going on in this world? And then you have conversations with them, and they're like, no. I date with purpose and I'm not just out there doing whatever. One of the things that I have to think about with my sons is making sure that they are asking the right questions, that they are identifying those pink and red flags. And just because you're dating someone doesn't mean that you are now committed and you have to go that traditional path. And so there's always an off ramp. So if you do see those things before you get into a full-fledged committed relationship, then there are opportunities for you to exit and it'll be best for both parties and it's okay. You don't have to have follow this traditional path that you meet someone, you start dating them in our definition of dating, and then you progress to marriage. That doesn't have to happen. You have the space and the grace to be who you are and to make sure that you're honoring both partners in this relationship or however many partners are in this relationship.
Right. Or even look at it even a little further back, I guess, than that, and don't even get off any off ramps to where you have to get back on there.
Mm.
Just stay on the damn highway until you've driven with this person or driven alongside this person long enough that you know how they drive. Like that if I do get off this exit with them and we have this relationship, then I have seen them in many different situations under many different conditions, and I have a really good picture of who this person is, not just because I want to touch them or have them touch me,
Yeah.
but because this person is genuinely healthy for my existence and the existence of my people, whether it be my children, whether it be my family, my friends, whatever it is. You want that person to be able to add to that. And
And
you're
you
not going
want,
to know that
go ahead.
quickly. That's not something you learn
No,
quickly.
that is true, and that is true. What I'm saying is that, right, as you progress through and you do give it enough time, if you do see some really glaring flags, it's okay to exit stage right. That's
It is
fine.
definitely okay.
It is
Yes.
okay. And then the other thing with that is making sure that they are also that person, that partner, they're adding value to your life, but you're also having the opportunity to add to their life. And if you're not being
Yeah.
able to have the space to show up to be the best version of yourself, then you need to evaluate that partnership, that relationship. It may not be best for you because everybody should be able to bring their authentic, best version of themselves to that relationship.
Yeah. And I get that, like we said, we bring our extra best foot forward when we first like somebody, but give it time for everyone to like start wearing their regular shoes again
Mm.
before you make those big decisions. And that's really the key that gets us, some of us, into sticky situations when it comes to relationships. I'm speaking specifically of myself.
Yeah.
So for dating, for me, is trying to find that balance between this person is nice. I enjoy being around this person, but is this person my ex-wife? I'm still struggling with the slippery slope that the one thing that might be misconstrued is instantly all the way down at the bottom of the slope, and it is the terror that has been previous relationships of mine. So trying to even reach out has been a struggle for me still. And yeah, so I thought you want to talk about dating was very ironic in that dating is it might, as if I were Superman, you would be talking about kryptonite.
Well, so thank you for that. And I think that what we'll do is I like to explore that concept of making sure that we're not dating our exes and how traumatic that can be. So we're about out of time here, and I want to honor you by saying thank you so much for showing up to this conversation. And then next time, let's do talk about, making sure that we are looking at people for their uniqueness and realizing that they cannot possibly be our exes, even if they exhibit a couple of those characteristics, they have completely different DNA. But we'll leave that for
Completely.
next time.
Indeed we
Yeah,
will.
thanks, brother. I love you.
Thanks, sister. I love you too.
All right, well, I'll
This is
chat with
fun.
you later for
This
sure.
is fun. All right, we'll talk
Okay,
to you later.
bye
Bye.
bye.